Imagine a tiny enemy, not a lion, not a shark, something much, much smaller. It arrives without a sound. It seeks warmth. It seeks living flesh. Any living flesh will do. Your flesh perhaps, or the flesh of your beloved dog, or your prize-winning cow. This is not some monster from a late-night horror movie. This creature is terrifyingly real. This is the screwworm, and it seems it is plotting a comeback, a return to old hunting grounds. We thought we had banished it. We were wrong. The very name inspires a special kind of dread. Ask any old-timer rancher, ask a wildlife veterinarian, they know the stories. They might have even seen the devastation firsthand. A single, unassuming fly, a tiny, insignificant wound. That is all it takes. That is the gateway, the beginning of a biological siege, a living, eating, burrowing nightmare. Let's properly introduce the adult fly. At first glance it might not seem too threatening. It looks a bit like a common housefly really. Perhaps a little larger, a little more robust. Its body shines with a metallic blue-green luster. Its eyes are a striking orange-red. It could almost be considered pretty, in a strictly entomological sense. Deceptively so. You might idly swat it away, thinking nothing more of it. But this fly is a messenger of misery, a scout for its truly horrifying offspring. The screwworm itself is not a worm at all despite the name. It is a maggot, the larval stage of this particular nasty species of blowfly. Screwworms, however, are obligate parasites of living mammals. This means they feed on living flesh to complete their life cycle. Their small larval bodies possess rings of tiny, backward-facing spines. These spines are arranged in distinct rows, much like the threads of a common wood screw. As these larvae feed, they burrow deeper and deeper into the host's flesh. They twist and turn, using these spines to anchor themselves firmly. The mission of the gravid female screwworm fly is chillingly precise. She seeks out a mammal, any mammal. She is drawn to the scent of blood, however faint. She finds a wound. It doesn't need to be large or severe. A paper cut on a human finger could suffice. A barbed wire scratch on a cow's flank. The still tender navel of a newborn lamb. She lands delicately. Then, she deposits her eggs. Not just a few. She can lay hundreds in one go. Up to 400 eggs, all neatly arranged in a shingle-like mass. Glued securely together, right on the edge of living, healthy tissue. A ticking, squirming time bomb. Within a mere 12 to 24 hours, depending on the temperature, the eggs hatch. Hundreds of tiny larvae, the first stage instars, emerge. They are born hungry, ravenous. They waste no time. They immediately burrow into the fresh wound. Head first, they dive in. They don't just nibble delicately. They tear at the flesh. They secrete powerful proteolytic enzymes. These enzymes liquefy the host tissues, making it easier for them to consume. They feed. They grow, astonishingly rapidly. The once small wound quickly becomes a teeming, festering pocket of writhing destruction. As the larvae feed and grow, the wound they inhabit expands. Picture the American South, the Southwest, and even parts of the Midwest before the 1950s. It was a different world for livestock producers. Ranchers and farmers lived under a constant, pervasive cloud of fear. The screwworm was a relentless scourge. Livestock losses were astronomical. Cattle, sheep, goats, horses, pigs, all were vulnerable. Even beloved pets were not safe. Millions upon millions of animals suffered agonizing, protracted deaths each year. The economic devastation was staggering. The emotional toll on those who cared for these animals, immeasurable. It was a true plague upon the land. But then, heroes emerged from the world of science. Two quiet, determined researchers, Edward F. Knipling and Raymond C. Bushland. They worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They were tasked with finding a solution to this devastating problem. They thought outside the box. They conceived of an idea that was, at the time, truly radical. What if you could somehow trick the flies? What if you could halt their reproduction? Not with ever stronger chemical poisons, not with simple traps, but with sex. Or more accurately, with the devastating consequences of fruitless sex. Their brilliant, audacious plan became known as the sterile insect technique, SIT. The concept was elegant in its simplicity, yet revolutionary. First, rear absolutely massive numbers of screwworm flies in a controlled factory setting. Section 5. They're back, the Florida Keys nightmare and beyond. Victory was declared. A great enemy had been vanquished. The threat of the screwworm seemed distant, a historical footnote. A problem confined to faraway countries in South America. Perhaps as a result, a degree of complacency began to set in. Funding for ongoing surveillance and prevention programs sometimes wavered. People forgot the true horror. The visceral fear faded into the sepia tones of memory. But nature is ever persistent, and the screwworm is an incredibly tenacious and opportunistic foe. It only takes one fertile female fly somehow evading detection, one infected animal slipping across a border. Then came 2016, the Florida Keys. Panic began to ripple through the community. It started with the beloved key deer, these small, unique, and endangered deer found only in this island chain. They were being discovered dead or horrifically injured and dying. They bore gruesome, festering wounds. Experienced local veterinarians recognized the telltale signs immediately. The characteristic pocket-like lesions, the teeming masses of maggots. Samples were urgently collected and sent for laboratory analysis. The diagnosis was confirmed: screwworm. Section 6. Not just for cows, the human threat looms. The scientific name of this fly tells a chilling story in itself. As we mentioned, translates from Latin as eater of man. This fly, and more specifically its larvae, do not discriminate based on species. While livestock such as cattle, sheep, and deer, along with other wildlife, are common targets due to their outdoor lifestyles and susceptibility to minor injuries, humans are absolutely not immune. Any open wound on a human body can become an attractive sight: a simple cut, a neglected scrape, a post-surgical incision. Even natural orifices like the nose, ears, or eyes can, under certain horrifying circumstances, become nesting sites for screwworm larvae. The thought alone is enough to make your skin crawl. Cases of screwworm infestation in humans, known as myiasis, are thankfully rare in areas where the fly has been successfully eradicated. However, they still occur with distressing regularity in regions where the screwworm fly remains endemic. Travelers returning from these areas can unknowingly bring back more than just souvenirs. People living in remote rural communities with limited access to healthcare are also at higher risk. Imagine a small child with an untended cut from playing outdoors, or an elderly bedridden person with an unnoticed pressure sore. The larvae burrow, they feed. The resulting pain, the secondary infection, the progressive tissue destruction, it constitutes a serious medical emergency. Section 7. Fighting fire with sterile flies? Modern warfare against the worm. The sterile insect technique, or SIT, remains our most effective and environmentally sound weapon in the ongoing war against the screwworm. It is truly the gold standard for control and eradication. Its genius lies in its specificity. It targets only the screwworm fly, leaving other insect populations unharmed. It doesn't involve the widespread broadcasting of potentially harmful chemical pesticides into the environment. The primary challenge today is maintaining a state of constant readiness. This means keeping specialized fly-rearing facilities operational, even in areas currently free of the pest. It means having a stockpile of sterile flies ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. Like a biological fire department, always prepared for an emergency call. However, scientists are not content to rest on past laurels. They are continually exploring new frontiers in research and technology to refine and improve our defenses against the screwworm. Genetic engineering holds promise. Perhaps creating even more effective sterile males, or developing strains where females are unable to reproduce or produce only male offspring. Scientists are also working on enhanced surveillance methods, developing more sensitive early warning systems. This could involve using unmanned aerial vehicles, drones for surveys, or deploying sophisticated new traps laced with attractants to detect any new incursions of the fly as quickly as possible, before a single infestation can escalate into a widespread outbreak. The screwworm, like many pests and diseases, does not recognize or respect international borders. An outbreak that begins in one country can easily spill over and threaten neighboring nations. Section 8. Don't panic, but be prepared, staying safe from the screwworm. Awareness is undoubtedly the very first line of defense against the screwworm. Now that you have learned about this creature, its truly gruesome habits, and its potential danger to both animals and humans, don't be consumed by terror. Instead, be informed. Understand that the immediate risk in areas that have long been eradicated, like most of North America, is currently very low. But it is critically important to remember that this risk is not zero. Knowing what to look for and what to do is key. This is especially true if you live in or plan to travel to regions where the screwworm fly is still known to exist. If you are a pet owner or responsible for livestock, vigilance is paramount. Check your animals regularly and thoroughly for any wounds, no matter how small they may seem. Even a minor tick bite or a scratch from a fence can become an entry point for screwworm larvae. Treat any injuries promptly and properly. Keep wounds clean and, if practical, covered with an appropriate dressing. If you notice a wound on an animal that isn't healing as expected, or seems to be getting larger or deeper, or if you see any evidence of maggots, contact your veterinarian immediately. Do not delay. Early detection and treatment are absolutely crucial for a positive outcome. For protecting yourself and your family, the advice is quite similar. Practice good personal hygiene and diligent wound care. Clean any cuts, scrapes, or abrasions thoroughly with soap and water or an antiseptic. Keep them covered with a bandage until healed.